Thank you so much for joining us for our special web coverage at 5 o'clock. I'm Cheryl Mercedes. Let's take a live look from Air 11 over NRG Park. This is the aftermath of the deadly night. Day 2 of the concert was canceled and crews started taking things down earlier today. We've got our crews spread out across the city at every angle covering the story. Let's start out with our Matt Doherty. Matt, we just got an update from police and still many questions.
Yeah, within the last hour, Cheryl, local officials were able to give us a few more details about their preliminary investigation. However, you're right, we still have a lot more questions. First, I want to tell you about the ages of some of the victims. One was 14, one was 16, 2 were 21, 2 were 23, 1 was 27, and the age of the last person remains unknown at this time. In total, there were 8 people who died. 13 people are still hospitalized. 5 of them are minors. We're told a 10-year-old is still in the hospital tonight in critical condition. Now, one of the most shocking details we learned today is that Houston police are investigating an incident where a security officer may have been stuck in the neck with a syringe. The officer was administered Narcan, which is given to revive someone who's had an opiate overdose. The chief explained the incident to reporters today.
We do have a report of a security officer, according to the medical staff that was out and treated him last night, that he was reaching over to restrain or grab a citizen, and he felt a prick in his neck. When he was examined, he went unconscious. They administered Narcan. He was revived, and the medical staff did notice a prick that was similar to a prick that you would get if somebody's trying to inject.
Now, Fire Department Chief Samuel Pena says that several doses of Narcan were administered at the event last night. However, he did not have a number on exactly how many. Chief Fenner says several of the individuals were trampled. Chief Pena says there were several permits filed for the event. However, he says there is no occupancy limit for outdoor events like this one. Police Chief Fenner says at one point there were 528 police officers and 755 security officers at last night's event. Of course, there are still a whole lot of unanswered questions tonight. We hope to bring you more answers as this investigation continues. Cheryl, back to you.
Matt, and as the chief reiterated many times, this is an active investigation and they will leave nothing unturned. Thank you so much. Matt Doherty reporting live. Travis Scott released a statement earlier today saying in part, quote, "I'm absolutely devastated by what took place last night. My prayers go out to the families and all of those impacted. Houston PD has my total support." You can read his full statement on KHOU.com. And we are learning now about the first confirmed victim who died in the chaos. Spring Branch ISD sent a letter to parents saying the victim was a 9th grade student at Memorial High School. Our team is working to learn more about the student, and we will bring you the latest information as soon as we get it. An estimated 50,000 people were packed into that parking lot at NRG. A festival attendee says the massive crowd is why there was so much chaos and confusion. Melissa Correa joins us now with more from his perspective. Melissa.
Hey there, Cheryl. Astroworld Festival was Reese Bluda's first music festival. You see him standing there in the orange sweatshirt. He's 6'2" and says his size is why he was able to work his way closer to the stage as the night went on. This is his cell phone video. You can see Reese is not far from the stage, but look at how many people are crammed in between. Listen as he describes the crowd of thousands essentially becoming like water when Travis Scott took the stage.
It literally, the crowd becomes a fluid, essentially. You get pushed from the back because people keep pressing in, and then the people at the gates, they don't have anywhere to go. They push back, and so you're just kind of like flowing. It's almost like a wave, but an uncontrolled wave. And you're not actually standing on the ground. You're just standing on other people's shoes.
Sardines. Reese says people were so crammed in that you could not push back even if you wanted to. Says the crowd became even more chaotic when Drake joined Travis Scott on stage for a performance. Said people were screaming for the concert to stop.
I mean, I'm around people, they're yelling, "Stop the show," chant. People were chanting "help." stop the show. And that's when I was like, dude. And then he stopped for a second and he said, what? And then he looked over on one side. He told them like, hey, get her up, get her up.
Videos on social media show what happened next. The concert continued until it became more evident that hundreds of people were in physical danger. Some of those viral videos even show first responders, Cheryl, struggling to reach some of the people who were affected.
Packed in and struggling to find a place to go to find safety. Hard to believe. Thank you so much. Melissa Correa reporting. A reunification center was set up at the Wyndham Wingate Hotel on Kirby near the 610 Loop to help families reunite with their loved ones. That's where we find our Brittany Ford. And Brittany, you've seen a lot happening there today. I imagine a lot of loved ones going there to see if they can find their family members.
Rochelle, we've seen dozens of people here at the Reunification Center just looking for answers and trying to reconnect with their family members. We have video to show you of what things look like here throughout the day. We've seen concert goers still in their clothes from last night, speaking with officers and personnel from the Houston Emergency Management Center that have been on site here throughout the day. The agency also had a hotline number. They were directing families to call for information if they didn't or hadn't heard from a loved one that went to the concert last night. But really, as you mentioned, it's been emotional out here. We've seen families again hugging each other, consoling each other. Back out here live, the good news here is that our last update from Judge Lena Hidalgo says that everyone here at the concert, or everyone at the concert last night, has been accounted for. The next steps here really will be what happened to those people and those families that had loved ones that were hurt. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you so much. That was Brittany Ford reporting. Not long ago, Governor Abbott saying what has happened at Astroworld Festival last night was tragic, and our hearts are with those who lost their lives and those who are injured. There are growing memorials outside the Astroworld Festival venue where many concert goers are returning now to pay respects to those killed and injured. That's where we find our Jason Miles. And Jason, I imagine a very emotional scene right now.
Oh, to say the least. You know, a lot of the people coming here today had tickets to day 2 of the festival, returning in a much more somber mood, as you might imagine. This is one of a couple of makeshift memorials here along West Ridge near Kirby, the venue of Astroworld Festival. Notes include RIP to all of the Ragers, and people from various cities have written their condolences as well. We've seen a number of people come by in just the short time we've been out here this afternoon, some bringing bouquets of flowers. All have stories about last night. An 18-year-old we met from Toronto, Canada, a huge Travis Scott fan, said he had a blast until the crowd started getting a little too chaotic. That's when he heard and saw things he'll never forget.
I understand people are there to rage, but sometimes it gets too far, you know? Like, I saw people getting thrown around. I saw people getting hurt in there. It was horrible. Like, I was a little scared at times, you know? Like, this is my first concert, too. This was a really strange experience for me, to tell you the truth. This was really strange.
His very first concert. Now, this is video another concert goer shared with us this afternoon. You can see he couldn't even keep his phone steady because of all of the movement that I'm told only got worse as Drake took the stage, much to the surprise of many of the folks at the festival. Now, back out here live, a fellow just came up with this shirt, hung it on the fence next to the balloons and the cards here. Again, a tribute to the folks who lost their lives here, many others who were injured, and people continue to make their way along this stretch of West Ridge, a place where so many people entered the festival yesterday and left, in many cases, in horror. Back to you.
Still so hard to believe. Thank you so much. Jason Miles reporting live. KHOU 11 Investigates has spent the day digging into the question, was enough done to keep concert goers safe? Jeremy Rogalski spoke with a national crowd safety expert for some insight. Jeremy.
Cheryl, that expert has studied crowd management for 30 years, and he says the problem all begins with the layout of the concert itself. The festival-style standing room only setup, he says, is by far the most dangerous.
From Elvis Presley on, everybody has known this is problematic.
The dangers of festival concert configurations are well documented, says crowd safety expert Paul Wertheimer.
It forces people in the crowd to work against each other. This is the worst thing that can happen in crowd safety.
The layout, he says, requires special precautions to reduce crowd density and clear pathways for first responders to treat the injured. All of this should be spelled out in the promoter's special event permit application, which requires a security control plan and emergency medical plan.
And who approved the risk assessment, the crowd management plan, and the emergency plan? And who prepared those? I want to see that. And then you're going to find out where everything went wrong.
City and county leaders say they are reviewing what promoter Live Nation submitted.
Perhaps the plans were inadequate. Perhaps the plans were good, but they weren't followed.
Officials say there were more than 500 Houston police officers in and around NRG Park and another 755 private security guards on scene. As for medical care, Live Nation hired a third party to be on site.
For a non-event, it would have been enough.
But the crowd-crushing event quickly spun out of control. It required 62 Houston Fire Department units to respond to take 25 concertgoers to the hospital.
And Fire Chief Sam Pena says inspectors were out earlier this week at NRG, and last night he says there were no reports of any exit doors blocked. But the problem was so many concertgoers couldn't get to those exits because they were so tightly packed near the stage. Cheryl?
All right, good information there. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Again, there are several phone numbers set up for families who haven't heard from Astroworld Festival attendees. Those numbers are right there on your screen, 832-393-2991 or 832-393-2990. Officials say you can also just simply dial 311 or 713-837-0311. We have all these numbers for you right now online at KHOU.com. There are thousands of posts flying all over social media about what happened at the Travis Scott concert at Astroworld, and a lot of misinformation is already spreading online. Brandy Smith is here to break down what we do know.
First, I want to say we only know what first responders have confirmed. I don't want to downplay what happened, but I do want to add a little context as someone who was there. I think most people like myself had no idea people were in trouble, but it is clear from videos shared on social media, some of the crowd did and tried to help. Texas A&M student Sienna is seen in multiple videos crawling onto a production platform, yelling at the crew about what she's seen in the crowd. In another video, the crowd appears to chant, "Stop the show." Scott did pause his performance, which was being streamed on Apple Music.
Somebody passed out right here. Hold on, don't touch him, don't touch him. Everybody just back up.
To point out someone who needed help.
Security, somebody help, jump in real quick, keep going.
The show went on, even as first responders drove into the crowd. At that point, social media documented people climbing on those vehicles. There are more videos out there showing people lying on the ground, some getting CPR, unconscious people being crowd surfed. We are not showing those because we either can't confirm their legitimacy or because they are too graphic. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Brandy. Posts by a Houston ICU nurse are also gaining traction on social media. She told our Melissa Correa that she stepped in because security guards were overwhelmed.
That's right, Cheryl. Madeline Eskins snapped this photo Friday afternoon as she entered NRG Park. The ICU nurse took a day off from work and had every intention of having fun with her boyfriend. But the medical worker and her boyfriend ran into trouble last night. She says they were near the front of the stage as Travis Scott was performing. Air 11 shows us what a crowd of 50,000 people looks like. Madeline says it felt like she was, quote, drowning in people. She says she was so crammed in she literally could not raise her arms or lower them if she wanted to. She was feeling pressure from every direction. At one point, she says she passed out, so her boyfriend and a security guard carried her out of the crowd. And when she came to, Madeline says she was among several other people who were in medical trouble.
I noticed that one guy that they were carrying, he looked real bad. And I stopped her. I said, "Hey, have you checked a pulse?" And the security guard was like, "I don't know how." I said, "Okay, I'm an ICU nurse, let me help." He's like, "Yeah, please check the pulse," or whatever. And he didn't have a pulse. And I said, "Hey, don't put him down to go get someone else. You need to take him straight to the medical tent." And then another security guard overheard me say I was an ICU nurse. So he said, "Hey, I said, what can I do to help?" He said, "Yeah, please, we need help over here."
Madeline says she triaged people for several minutes and stayed in the parking lot there at NRG until every person she helped was taken to a hospital via ambulance. She and her boyfriend say they're physically okay today, but so many people, especially those whose posts have gone viral on social media, are telling me that they are still in shock and they are too exhausted to begin processing last night's traumatic experience. Our heart and our prayers go out to them, Cheryl.
Yeah, Melissa, I bet that's going to take a lot of time. Thank you so much. For those of you perhaps just joining us, this is our special continuing coverage of the Astroworld Festival tragedy. At least 8 people died, hundreds of others injured, when a huge crowd surged toward the stage during the Travis Scott performance last night. The festival was one of the most anticipated musical events of the year. Up to 50,000 people were in attendance. As aerial footage from our chopper shows, fans started arriving early.
12:13 p.m. Air 11 captures some of the first arrivals to the festival, organizers opening the gates to allow fans inside, even though the show didn't officially kick off until 1 p.m. By 3 o'clock, a nice-sized crowd had gathered. The space started to fill up, but it hadn't reached capacity just yet. 2 hours later, the venue was even fuller. The crowd all pushed toward the stage, even though there appears to be available space towards the back. 7:08, it's a similar situation. You can see the space is not full, but most of the people are concentrated towards the stage. This is about 2 hours before things went horribly wrong. And here's how it looked just before 1 this morning. The scene had cleared except for the first responders who had come to the aid of hundreds of victims who had succumbed to the devastating crowd surge.
We will be following the tragedy at Astroworld for quite some time. Our live team coverage will continue on KHOU 11 News at 6 and 10, as well as KHOU.com. We also want to remind you of several phone numbers available for those who haven't heard from a loved one who attended that festival. Those numbers are 832-393-2991 or 832-393-2990. Officials said you can also dial 311 or 713-837-0311. You can also find those numbers on KHOU.com. We'll see you right back here at 6 and 10.